Okay, so this is the 3-3 for Algebra 1's notes. If you're from your textbook, you want to pull pages 247 to 253. If you're doing the paper version of the assignment, you'll do pages 254 to 257. Problems 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, and 23. So this time we're going to take what we've learned about the slope, which is the m, and the intercept, which is the b, and write an equation for the lines that they form in the form of y equals mx plus b. So we have an example of a problem where Andrew wants to buy a smartphone that costs $500. He agrees to pay his parents $50 per month until he's paid the whole thing off. So when he first gets the phone, that's at 0 time, but he still owes $500. The rate of change is how much he's paying each month, which is the $50 per month. So the y-intercept in this case, because x is 0, the y-intercept is 500, and the slope, which is rise over run, is negative $50 per 1 month, or negative 50. And so the y-intercept is the point of 0, 500, because that's where it's 0 time, he owes $500. If we use those two pieces of information, the rise, or in this case, fall of $50 per 1 month, and the y-intercept of 500, what we can do is actually draw our graph. So we drop from 500, 0, 500, drop 50 over 1. That gives us, after 1 month, he now owes 450. After 2 months, he now owes 400, etc. And that allows us to figure out how much time it would take him to get to the point where he owes no money, which would be at 10 months. Okay? So that's further explained on the next page, where we're talking about taking the slope, the change in the y's. So going from 500 to 450 is a drop of 50. And then an run of 1. So for every $50 down, he moves over 1 month. And that gives us a chance to be able to draw the line. Okay. So what we are trying to do is to use knowing the slope and finding the b to figure out what the equation is. So if we know our slope formula, and we know that the y-intercept is 0, comma, whatever the number is that it crosses the y-axis, we can actually solve this equation to find the equation for the line. The most important thing is know this equation. Know what that is, and know what m is, which is the slope, and know what b is, which is the y-intercept. If you know those two pieces of information, you can write the equation for that line. Okay, so this is working out all of the steps, starting with you have 2 points. If you know that you have 2 points, that means you do not yet have the slope. So we're going to use our formula that I taught you, y minus k over x minus h, and using our 2 points, and we're going to call the first point xy and the second point hk, and then put them into the equation. That will give us our slope of 4. Then we can pick either one of the 2 points. They picked 213 for us, and they show how you could plug it in to find b. There's actually an easier way of doing that. If you already have your xy and you have the slope, then you can actually use this formula to find your b. So b is our xy, y is 13, minus our slope of 4 times our x of 2. So our slope was 4, and our... Okay, so if we already know our m is 4, and we have a point in either one of the points of 213, we can plug those numbers in. Y is 13 minus 4 times 2, so 13 minus 8, and that tells us our b was 5. Then we plug those 2 pieces of information, y equals mx plus b. Now we don't need our x and y, now we need our m and b. So m is 4 and b is 5. So the line we're finding, the answer we're looking for is that equation. Okay, so it's sometimes a lot of plugins. You just have to make sure you work it all the way out until you get to what they're asking for. If they're looking for the equation, you still have to do that final step of taking the m that you already found and the b that we found and plugging them into the equation. Okay, so I originally did this video and I actually worked these out by hand. Unfortunately, it didn't record the first time, but it tells us we have a slope of -1 and then we have a point of 3.2. So we're going to call that 3.2 xy. Since we already have our slope, we can use the b equals y minus mx and plug in our x and m and the y, x, and m to find out what our b is. And then we take our m, -1, and our 5, and put those into the equation. So it's -1 times x, which is still -x, plus 5. If we have 2 points, we first have to find our m by using our equation, which you practiced in 3-2. Then we plug that in, that and one of the 2 points. It doesn't really matter which point you choose, but since we call this x and y, we'll use those points. 4 minus 7 times 1, which is 4 minus 7, or -3, and that gives us our b. So our m is 7x plus b, which was -3, so it's -3. Okay, if we have an equation, the equation already written in the form of mx plus b, then we can figure out what our m and our b is very quickly. M will be whatever's in front of the x, 5, and b is whatever's behind the x, -4, which is -4. That allows us to do our picture. So the -4 is the y-intercept, so it's the first point, and the other one tells us how much to count up, which is 5, and how much to go over, which is 1, because 5 is 5 over 1. So rise over run. If we have a standard form equation, this is the y-intercept form, or slope-intercept. This is the standard form. There's a couple of little tricks that we can use to find the b and the m. We can use a setup called c divided by b. So the number that's the c, which is whatever's after the equal sign, divided by the number in front of the y. That will tell us our b, our y-intercept. And to find our m, we do negative of whatever the number is in front of the x divided by whatever the number is in front of the y. And that will tell us our slope. So again, we use the first one to find our first dot. Then we use the slope to go down 1 and over 3. That way we can draw the points. Okay, so I'm showing one more example. Again, we take and label it ABC. Remember, the number in front of the y is a 1 because it did not have one originally. So to find m, we're going to do -a over b. So -2 over 1, or -2. To find b, we do c over b, which is 4 over 1, or 4. If we want to know the x-intercept, which would be a third point, it's c over a, which is 4 over 2, or 2. So at 4, we put our first dot. Then we use -2, so we're going to go down 2 and over 1. Down 2 and over 1, and we see all our 3 points, and then we can connect them. But what is our slope-intercept form? Well, that is y equals mx plus b. Our m was -2, and our b is 4. So we put that in. So let's do one more example. Since this is in standard form, I'm going to write ABC at the top. And we're looking for m, we're looking for b, and we'll look for the x-intercept just so we have a third point. So m, again, is -a over b. So a is 2, -a is -2, over b is 3. And then b is c over b, which is 6 over 3, or 2. And then for x-intercept, it's c over a. So 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So at y is 2, we're going to put our first dot. Then we're going to use our slope going down 2 and over 3. So counting by 2 or counting by 1s, we go down 2 and then over 3. And that puts our second point. Now, it just happens that that is our x-intercept. So using any straight edge, we can connect our 2 dots and draw our line. Now, what is the slope-intercept form? Well, in this case, it's y equals m x plus b, which is m is negative 2/3, x plus b is 2. And that gives us our answer. Okay. They give us another example of a word problem, and they show us our picture. They show that the point at which it's crossing the y-axis, you know it's the y-axis because it has the arrow at the top. All of the times whenever you're trying to figure out, well, what's the y and the x-axis, look for an arrow. So the dark line or the arrowed line or the y line, those are the y-intercept or y-axis, and the left right is the x-axis. So where is it crossing the y-axis? That is your y-intercept, that is your b. Then you can use the down slope or use the formula of the first, in this case, I said that this was my xy and that's my hk. It doesn't really matter which ones you put in. You'll get the same answer on your slope either way. So down 750 over 1. And then when we put it in, we end up with negative 750x plus 5,400 RB. We can use that to then figure out that, well, where were they when x was 2? I plugged 2 into my new equation I just figured out, and I figured out that they're at 3,900 feet above ground. Okay? So one more example using a chart. A local club charges the initial fee as a monthly charge. The cost C in dollars is a linear function. Find the cost after 4 months. So there's 2 parts to this question. First, they want to find the equation. We want to find the equation, and then we want to use x is 4 to find the answer at that one, the cost there. So first, we're going to pick 2 points. It doesn't really matter which 2 we want. Let's just say that these 2. So this is my x and that's my y. That's my h and that's my k. I know I have to label them that way because I don't have the slope. So our first step is to find the slope, y minus k over x minus h. Y I've labeled as 100, k I labeled as 277, x is 0, minus h is 3. And then using a calculator, we can figure out the answer. So we're going to put it in our calculator, control divide, 100 minus 277 over 0 minus 3. Remember, if you have a negative on any of the numbers, a minus sign and a negative sign are not the same thing. So make sure you're watching your negatives. So our slope in this case is 59. Now we need to find our b. Well, b's formula is y minus m times x. We have to choose one of our 2 numbers to be our x and y. We'll just keep using the same x and y we already labeled. So b is 100 minus m, which is 59, times x, which was 0. So our b is, in this case, 100, because that becomes 0. So what is our equation? Y equals m, which is 59, x, plus b, which was 100. Now that we have an equation, we can stick 4 in where our x is and say y is 59 times 4 plus 100. So 59 times 4 plus 100 in our calculator, and we get y is at 336. And that is answering both questions. First, we had our answer that was the equation. Second, we had our answer that is, what is the y when x is 4? Okay? So that is all of the 3-3